The most heartwarming stories of dog loyalty you've never heard. Part 1. The timeless bond between dogs and humans. Dogs have been called man's best friend for centuries. But what does true loyalty look like? It's not just about fetching a ball or wagging a tail when you come home. It's about waiting for years for an owner who will never return, standing guard when danger is near, sacrificing everything to protect the one they love. Some stories of loyalty have become legendary, like Hachiko in Japan, but today, we bring you some of the lesser-known yet equally touching tales of dog devotion. These are the true stories that prove that dogs don't just love us. They never stop loving us. 1. Capitan, the dog who slept by his owner's grave for 10 years. In a quiet town in Argentina, a German shepherd named Capitan became a symbol of eternal love and loyalty. Capitan belonged to Miguel Guzman, a man who loved him deeply. Every day, they would walk through the streets together, enjoying the simple pleasures of life. But one day, everything changed. Miguel suddenly passed away. The family was heartbroken, but Capitan took the loss the hardest. Then, something incredible happened. A week after Miguel's funeral, Capitan disappeared from home. The family searched everywhere. Days later, they found him, lying beside Miguel's grave at the cemetery. The most shocking part? No one had ever taken him there. He had found his owner's grave all on his own. From that day on, Capitan never left. He slept beside the grave every night. He walked through the cemetery during the day. He refused to leave, no matter how many times Miguel's family tried to bring him home. For 10 years, through storms, heat, and cold nights, Capitan remained by Miguel's side. Until the very end, when Capitan himself passed away. He was laid to rest next to his beloved owner. His story became one of the greatest examples of canine loyalty in history. 2. Fido, the dog who waited at the bus stop for 14 years. In Italy, during the early 1940s, a stray dog was rescued by a kind man named Carlo Soriani. He named him Fido, meaning faithful, a name that would soon become legendary. Fido and Carlo became inseparable. Every morning, Fido would walk Carlo to the bus stop, watching as he left for work. Every evening, at the same time, Fido would return to the bus stop, waiting for Carlo to step off the bus. And every day, Carlo would greet his loyal friend with a smile. But then, tragedy struck. During World War II, a bombing raid hit Carlo's workplace. He never came home. Yet, Fido kept waiting. For 14 years, every single evening, rain or shine, Fido returned to the bus stop. Passengers saw him sitting there, eyes scanning every bus that arrived, hoping to see his best friend again. He never gave up hope. His loyalty touched the entire town, and he was eventually honored with a statue in his name, forever capturing his devotion. Even though his owner never returned, Fido never stopped waiting. 3. Shep, the dog who watched over his owner's casket until the end. In Montana, USA, during the 1930s, a shepherd lived alone with his devoted collie mix named Shep. The two had a simple life, spending every day herding sheep, walking through the fields, and enjoying the quiet companionship of man and dog. But one day, the shepherd became ill. He was taken to a hospital, leaving Shep behind. Days later, Shep watched as his owner's casket was loaded onto a train. Confused and heartbroken, Shep followed the train to the station and waited. For 5 years, Shep never left the station. He watched every train arrive and depart. He stood at the platform, waiting for his owner to step off. Railway workers fed him, but he refused to leave. It didn't matter that his owner was gone. Shep still believed he would come back. Eventually, Shep grew old and weak. One winter night, after years of waiting, he slipped on the icy tracks and was hit by an incoming train. His death broke the hearts of everyone who had watched his story unfold. But Shep was not forgotten. A statue was erected in his honor, reminding the world that true loyalty never fades, not even in death. 4. Wagyu, the dog who leaped into his master's funeral pyre. Centuries ago, in India, a warrior king named Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj ruled with great honor. He was known for his courage, wisdom, and love for his people. But there was one creature who loved him more than anyone else, his dog, Wagyu. When the king passed away, a grand funeral ceremony was held, with thousands mourning his loss. As his body was placed onto the funeral pyre, a collective grief filled the air. And then, Wagyu did something unimaginable. The dog leaped into the flames, choosing to die beside his master. It was an act of ultimate loyalty, one that stunned the entire kingdom. A monument was later built in his honor, ensuring that his devotion would never be forgotten. 5. Kostya, the Russian Hachiko. In a small town in Russia, a man and his German shepherd, Kostya, shared an unbreakable bond. Every day, they walked together to the train station, where the man would board the train for work. And every day, Kostya waited for his return. But then, one day, the man never came back. A tragic accident had taken his life. Yet, Kostya kept coming back. For 7 years, the dog waited at the train station, searching for the face he longed to see. The townspeople tried to care for him, but he refused to leave. Even through harsh Russian winters, Kostya remained at his post. Until one day, he was found lying peacefully near the station, as if he had finally accepted that his wait was over. A statue now stands in his honor, marking his place as one of the most loyal dogs in history. Final thoughts: the power of a dog's love. What makes dogs so special? It's not just their loyalty, it's their unwavering love, their ability to stay by our side even when we're gone. These stories prove that love knows no boundaries, no time, no limits. Dogs don't just love us while we're here. They love us beyond life itself. Part 2. The unbreakable bond between dogs and their owners. In Part 1, we explored some of the most legendary stories of dog loyalty, stories of dogs who waited, guarded, and even sacrificed their own lives out of love for their owners. But loyalty isn't just something of the past. Even today, there are incredible, real-life stories of dogs proving their unwavering devotion in ways that leave us speechless. From modern-day heroes to unexpected acts of bravery, here are 5 more unforgettable stories that show just how deep a dog's love can go. 1. Tommy, the dog who never missed church after his owner passed away. In a small village in Italy, an elderly woman named Maria Loki had one constant companion, her dog, Tommy. Maria adopted Tommy as a stray, and from that day forward, he never left her side. Everywhere she went, Tommy followed, even to church. The priest allowed Tommy to sit quietly by Maria's feet during Mass, as he never caused trouble. Then, one day, Maria passed away. The village mourned her loss, but no one took it harder than Tommy. At her funeral, Tommy followed the procession all the way to the church, sitting beside her coffin as if he understood what was happening. But the most incredible part? Tommy kept coming back. Every day, at the same time Maria used to attend Mass, Tommy would show up at the church. He would sit by the altar, waiting for her, rain or shine. He never missed a single service. The priest and villagers began leaving food and water for him, touched by his unwavering devotion, until the day Tommy passed away, still faithful to his owner until the very end. His story captured hearts worldwide, proving once again that a dog's love never fades. 2. Hawkeye, the dog who mourned his fallen soldier. During the war in Afghanistan, a brave soldier, John Tummelson, was deployed on a dangerous mission. But back home, his loyal Labrador retriever, Hawkeye, waited patiently for his return. John and Hawkeye had been inseparable, and when John left for war, Hawkeye never stopped waiting for him. Then, tragedy struck. John lost his life in combat, and his family was devastated. But no one took it harder than Hawkeye. At John's military funeral, something heartbreaking happened. As John's casket was placed in the church, Hawkeye walked forward, laid down in front of it, and refused to move. He let out a deep, sorrowful sigh, resting his head on the ground in mourning. The image of Hawkeye lying beside his owner's casket went viral, touching the hearts of millions around the world. His grief was undeniable, and his story became one of the most powerful examples of a dog's loyalty to their human. 3. Lay Owl, the dog who stood watch over his owner's grave. In 2011, A devastating landslide hit Brazil, taking the lives of thousands of people. Among them was Leal's owner, a woman he loved more than anything. Rescue workers searched through the rubble, hoping to find survivors. Days later, they made a heartbreaking discovery. Among the ruins of what used to be a village, they saw Leal sitting next to a grave. His eyes were sad but determined, his body still, his spirit unbroken. Rescue workers assumed he would leave after a while, but he didn't. Leal stayed at that grave for days, refusing to leave. He kept watch over his owner, waiting, hoping, until finally, he was rescued and taken in by a kind family who honored his devotion. But even in his new home, he never forgot. His loyalty was a reminder that even in the face of loss, a dog's love endures. 4. Xander, the husky who traveled miles to find his owner in the hospital. In New York, a man named John Dolan was hospitalized due to a serious illness. He had no idea that back at home, someone was desperately missing him. His Siberian husky, Xander, had grown up with John and couldn't understand why his owner was suddenly gone. Xander became restless, pacing back and forth, whining at the door. Then, one night, something unbelievable happened. Xander escaped from home and began running. No one knew where he was going. Until the next morning, when John woke up in his hospital bed and saw Xander sitting outside the entrance. Somehow, the dog had traveled 2 miles across highways, rivers, and busy streets just to find his owner. No one had guided him. No one had told him where to go. But somehow, Xander found his way to the person he loved most. And that day, John knew that no matter what, he would never be alone. 5. Gellert, the legendary dog who was loyal to the end. In 13th century Wales, a prince named Llewellyn the Great had a loyal hunting dog named Gellert. Gellert was trusted with everything, including guarding the prince's newborn son. One day, while Llewellyn was out hunting, Gellert stayed behind to protect the baby. But when the prince returned home, he found a horrifying sight. His baby's crib was overturned, the blankets torn, and Gellert stood nearby, his mouth covered in blood. In his grief and rage, Llewellyn assumed the worst. Believing that Gellert had harmed his child, he drew his sword and killed his beloved dog. The moment Gellert collapsed, a faint cry came from the corner of the room. Llewellyn turned and saw his baby, alive and unharmed, and beside him lay the body of a dead wolf. Gellert had not attacked the baby. He had protected him. The prince fell to his knees, overcome with guilt. He had lost his most loyal friend because he had failed to trust him. To this day, Gellert's grave still stands in Wales, a permanent reminder of a dog's unshakable loyalty. Final thoughts: the love that never fades. Each of these stories proves one thing: dogs love us more than they love themselves. They wait, they search, they protect. Even when they have nothing to gain, they give us everything they have. This is what makes dogs so special. They don't just love us in life, they love us beyond it. Part 3. When dogs became heroes. Dogs don't just show their loyalty through waiting and mourning. They also risk their own lives to protect us. Throughout history, there have been countless stories of dogs saving humans from fire, drowning, attacks, and even natural disasters. Some dogs sense danger before it happens. Others act without hesitation, putting their own lives on the line. In this chapter, we will explore 5 extraordinary true stories of dogs who saved their owners. These are the moments when dogs didn't just show loyalty, they became heroes. 1. Kelsey, the dog who kept his owner alive in the snow for 20 hours. It was New Year's Eve in Michigan, and a man named Bob was at home when disaster struck. Bob stepped outside to get firewood, but as he walked across the snow-covered yard, he suddenly slipped and fell. The impact left him unable to move. He had broken his neck. There was no one else around to hear his cries for help. The temperature was below freezing, and he was wearing only a t-shirt, pajamas, and slippers. It should have been a death sentence. But Bob wasn't alone. His golden retriever, Kelsey, came running. For the next 20 hours, Kelsey laid on top of Bob, using her body heat to keep him from freezing, licked his face to keep him awake and conscious, barked nonstop to alert anyone nearby. Bob later recalled that he had almost given up, but Kelsey wouldn't let him sleep. Finally, after nearly a full day in the freezing cold, a neighbor heard Kelsey's barking and called for help. Bob survived because his dog refused to give up on him. 2. Killian, the dog who exposed a dangerous babysitter. Dogs don't just protect us from physical danger, sometimes. They sense something is wrong before we do. This was the case for Killian, a black Labrador retriever in South Carolina. Killian lived with a couple, Benjamin and Hope Jordan, and their baby boy, Finn. The Jordans hired a babysitter to watch Finn while they worked. At first, everything seemed fine until Killian started acting strangely. Every time the babysitter arrived, Killian would growl and snarl at her, place himself between Finn and the babysitter, become aggressive, something he had never done before. Benjamin and Hope started to worry. Why was their gentle, loving dog suddenly acting this way? They decided to hide a recording device in the house. When they listened to the recordings, they were horrified. The babysitter had been abusing Finn, yelling at him, shaking him, and treating him with cruelty. Thanks to Killian, the babysitter was arrested and sentenced to prison. Finn was saved because his dog knew something was wrong before anyone else did. 3. Leica, the military dog who took 4 bullets to save her team. Loyalty doesn't just exist in homes, it exists on the battlefield. Leica, a Belgian Malinois, was a military working dog deployed in Afghanistan. Her mission was to detect explosives and protect her team of soldiers. One day, during an operation, the unit was ambushed by enemy fire. Without hesitation, Leica charged into the building first, taking down an armed insurgent. But then, gunfire erupted. Leica was shot 4 times at point-blank range. Despite her injuries, she continued fighting, ensuring that her team could safely move forward. Because of her actions, no soldiers were lost that day. Leica was rushed to a military hospital, where surgeons amputated one of her legs to save her life. After recovering, she was adopted by the soldiers she had saved, living out the rest of her days in comfort. She was awarded the Purple Heart and Medal of Honor, proving that dogs aren't just pets, they are warriors. 4. Toby, the golden retriever who performed the Heimlich maneuver. Dogs are known for their intuition, but sometimes their instincts go beyond what we expect. This was the case for Toby, a golden retriever in Pennsylvania. One day, Toby's owner, Debbie Parkhurst, was home alone eating an apple when she started choking. The piece of fruit was stuck in her throat, and she couldn't breathe. She tried hitting her own chest, but it didn't work. Then, Toby sprang into action. He jumped up on Debbie's chest, knocking her down. Then, he continued jumping up and down on her stomach, just like the Heimlich maneuver. After several jumps, the apple piece dislodged, and Debbie was able to breathe again. She was in shock. How had Toby known what to do? No one knows. But one thing is certain, without Toby, Debbie wouldn't be alive today. 5. Britannia, the last surviving 9/11 rescue dog. When the World Trade Center collapsed on September 11, 2001, thousands of firefighters, police officers, and emergency workers rushed to Ground Zero. But they weren't the only ones. Among them was Britannia, a golden retriever trained in search and rescue. For weeks, Britannia worked tirelessly, helping to find survivors buried under the rubble. She comforted first responders, sniffed through the debris, and gave hope when all seemed lost. Years later, Britannia was recognized as the last surviving search and rescue dog from 9/11. When she passed away at the age of 16, she was given a hero's farewell, with firefighters and police officers saluting as she took her final walk. Her story serves as a reminder that dogs don't just love us, they serve us. They protect us, and they give us their all. Final thoughts, the true meaning of loyalty. Some people believe that dogs are just animals, but stories like these prove that dogs are so much more than that. They save lives. They sense danger before we do. They put themselves in harm's way to protect us. Loyalty is not just about waiting. Loyalty is about standing beside us, no matter what happens. And if there's one thing we've learned, it's this. A dog's love is not just unconditional, it is limitless. Part 4. the dogs who wouldn't give up, incredible journeys of loyalty. In Part 3, we explored stories of dogs who risked their lives to save their owners. But what about the dogs who, against all odds, traveled vast distances, endured harsh conditions, and defied nature just to reunite with the people they loved? Some of these stories sound too unbelievable to be true, but they are. These are the dogs who prove that no amount of time or distance could break the bond between them and their owners. This is loyalty in its purest form. 1. Bobby, the wonder dog who traveled 2.551 miles to get home. In 1923, a collie mix named Bobby was on a road trip across the United States with his family. While stopping for gas in Indiana, Bobby was chased away by a group of stray dogs. He vanished without a trace. His owners searched for weeks, but with no sign of Bobby, they had to return home to Silverton, Oregon. Heartbroken, they believed they would never see him again. 6 months later, something unbelievable happened. A thin, exhausted, and injured dog limped into Silverton. It was Bobby. Against all odds, he had traveled 2.551 miles across the United States alone. He crossed rivers, deserts, and mountains. He survived extreme weather, starvation, and wild animals. He found his way back home, despite never having taken the journey before. When his owners saw him, they broke down in tears. Bobby became known as the Wonder Dog, and his story was featured in newspapers across America. His incredible journey proved what every dog owner already knows. A dog will always find its way back to the one they love. 2. Lassie in real life, the dog who traveled 500 miles to find his family. In 2012, a Sheltie named Xander was taken on a family vacation from their home in Alaska to Washington State. During the trip, Xander got lost in the unfamiliar area. The family was devastated. They searched for weeks but couldn't find him. With heavy hearts, they eventually had to return home without him. Then, months later, they got a call. A woman in Alaska had found a thin, exhausted Sheltie wandering the streets. It was Xander. He had traveled 500 miles across icy terrain, frozen rivers, and wolf-infested forests, alone. No one knows how he survived the journey, but one thing was certain. He had found his way home. His family was reunited with him, and Xander's incredible journey became one of Alaska's most famous dog stories. 3. Bekgu, the dog who traveled 300 miles to find his original owner. In South Korea, a Jindo dog named Bekgu lived with his beloved owner in a rural village. One day, due to financial hardships, his owner had to give Bekgu away to a new family in a town 300 miles away. Bekgu's new family took good care of him, but the dog refused to settle in. Every day, he looked toward the horizon, longing for his original owner. Then, one day, he disappeared. The new family searched for weeks, but there was no sign of Bekgu. Meanwhile, back in the rural village, Bekgu's original owner was stunned when a familiar figure appeared on the horizon. It was Bekgu, thin, exhausted, and covered in scratches. He had traveled 300 miles across mountains and cities to find his way back. The owner, overwhelmed with emotion, vowed never to part with Bekgu again. Bekgu's story became so famous in South Korea that it inspired the government to recognize the Jindo breed as a national treasure. 4. Bucky, the guide dog who found his blind owner after being stolen. In Texas, a blind man named Jim Davis relied on his guide dog, Bucky, for everything. Bucky wasn't just a helper, he was Jim's eyes, his protector, and his best friend. One evening, Jim tied Bucky to a post outside a grocery store while he went inside to buy food. When he came out, Bucky was gone. Someone had stolen his guide dog. Jim was heartbroken. He posted flyers, searched the streets, and prayed for a miracle. Days passed. Then, one night at 3 a.m., Jim woke up to the sound of scratching at his door. When he opened it, Bucky was standing there, thin, bruised, and limping. He had somehow escaped from his captors and found his way home. No one knows how Bucky navigated the unfamiliar city streets alone, but one thing was clear. Nothing could keep him from returning to the man he loved. 5. Prince, the dog who walked 240 miles to reunite with his owner after a hurricane. In 2018, Hurricane Florence devastated the southeastern United States. A man named Robert Wilson and his dog, Prince, were caught in the storm. Rescuers had to airlift Robert to safety, but in the chaos, Prince was left behind. For weeks, Robert was stuck in an evacuation shelter, worrying about his dog. Then, a miracle happened. Prince had walked 240 miles across flooded towns and ruined landscapes to find his way to Robert. When they were finally reunited, Prince jumped into his arms, whimpering and wagging his tail. The moment was captured by rescue workers and quickly went viral. Prince proved that even in the aftermath of disaster, love can find a way home. Final thoughts: the unbreakable bond between dogs and humans. What makes these stories so incredible? Dogs don't have maps. They don't have GPS. They don't even understand human roads and city layouts. And yet, they find their way home. They cross thousands of miles. They survive against impossible odds. They refuse to give up, no matter what. This isn't just loyalty. This is love beyond understanding. Because for dogs, home isn't just a place. Home is where their human is. And they will never stop searching until they find their way back. Part 5. The science behind a dog's loyalty and how we can repay it. In Part 4, we explored the incredible journeys of dogs who crossed vast distances just to reunite with their beloved owners. But why are dogs so loyal? Why do they never abandon us, even in the toughest conditions? Is it just instinct or something deeper, more emotional? In this final chapter, we'll explore the science behind a dog's unwavering devotion, the most famous human-dog bonds in history, how we, as humans, can repay their loyalty. Because after all the stories we've shared, one thing is clear: dogs don't just see us as owners, they see us as family. 1. The science of dog loyalty. Why do they love us so much? Many people assume that dogs are loyal because we feed them, but science tells us this isn't true. In fact, dogs form bonds with humans that are far deeper than just food and shelter. 1.1. Dogs bond with humans like children do with parents. Scientists have studied the attachment between dogs and humans and discovered something fascinating. Dogs see their owners the same way human babies see their parents. When a dog is with their owner, their stress levels drop. When they are separated, they experience anxiety, just like a child would. When reunited, their brains release oxytocin, the same love hormone that strengthens human relationships. This means dogs don't just stay with us out of habit, they stay because they love us. 1.2. Dogs have evolved to love humans. Unlike wolves, which maintain hierarchical packs, domestic dogs have evolved to see humans as part of their family. Over thousands of years, they have developed the ability to read our emotions, understand our tone of voice, and even sense when we are sad or in danger. This is why a dog can often comfort their owner without being told to. Their loyalty isn't just instinct, it's emotional connection. 2. The strongest human-dog bonds in history. While every dog is loyal in its own way, some human-dog relationships have been so extraordinary that they have gone down in history. Here are 3 of the most famous examples. 2.1. Balto, the dog who saved an entire town. In 1925, the town of Nome, Alaska, was hit with a deadly diphtheria outbreak. The only cure was miles away, and the town was completely cut off by snowstorms. A group of sled dogs was sent to retrieve the medicine, but the final stretch of the journey was the most dangerous. That's when Balto, a Siberian husky, stepped in. Through blizzards, ice, and exhaustion, Balto led his team to deliver the medicine, saving thousands of lives. To this day, Balto is honored as one of the most loyal and heroic dogs in history. 2.2. Hachiko, the most faithful dog in the world. No list of loyal dogs would be complete without Hachiko, the Akita from Japan. Hachiko belonged to Professor Hidesaburo Ueno, who took the train to work every day. Every evening, Hachiko would wait at the train station for his owner's return. But one day, Professor Ueno never came home. He had died suddenly at work. Yet, for nearly 10 years, Hachiko continued waiting at the train station every evening, hoping for his return. His loyalty became a national symbol in Japan, and a statue was built in his honor at Shibuya Station. Even today, Hachiko's story reminds us of a dog's eternal devotion. 2.3. Sergeant Stubby, the dog who became a war hero. During World War I, an American soldier found a stray Boston Terrier mix on the battlefield. He named him Stubby and trained him to help detect gas attacks, find wounded soldiers, and even capture enemies. Stubby became the only dog to receive a military rank, Sergeant Stubby. After the war, he was honored by presidents and awarded medals for his bravery. His story is proof that dogs aren't just loyal companions. They can also be heroes. 3. How can we repay a dog's loyalty? Dogs dedicate their entire lives to loving us. But how often do we think about repaying their loyalty? Here's how we can give back to them. 3.1. Give them the best life possible. A dog doesn't ask for much, just love, safety, and companionship. Provide a stable home. Give them proper veterinary care. Feed them a healthy diet. They devote their entire existence to us, so the least we can do is ensure they live long, happy lives. 3.2. Never abandon them. One of the saddest realities is that millions of dogs are abandoned each year. Yet, even when left behind, many dogs still wait for their owners to return. If you welcome a dog into your life, commit to them completely, because to them, you are their entire world. 3.3. Spend quality time with them. Dogs don't understand time the way we do. To us, they are part of our lives. But to them, we are their whole life. Every moment we spend with them is a moment they cherish. Take them on walks. Play with them. Show them love every day. Because one day, when they're gone, we'll realize that they gave us everything they had. Final thoughts: a love that lasts forever. Dogs are more than just companions. They are family. They are heroes. They are the most loyal beings on earth. From the ancient past to the modern world, dogs have proven time and time again that their love is unbreakable. They don't care about wealth, status, or flaws. They love us for who we are, and they never stop. So if you are lucky enough to have a dog, remember this: they would do anything for you. So make sure you do the same for them. Because loyalty deserves to be returned. Loyalty like this is rare. Dogs don't care about wealth, status, or appearances. They love us unconditionally, and they never stop. If these stories touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of dogs who changed lives. Do you have a story of a loyal dog? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear it.